Today's episode of the Bleav in Steelers show is brought to you by BetOnline.ag, and the Steelers are 6-point underdogs on the road against the Baltimore Ravens for this weekend's game. It's a Saturday game. The Steelers win. They win the AFC North division. If you have a hunch on the game or want to get in on the action, BetOnline.ag is the place to do it. BetOnline, the game starts here. Welcome into Bleav in Steelers. My name is Mark Bergin. We're keeping today's episode in the Bleav family. He is the host of Bleav in Ravens. He played for the Ravens, tight end for several years. He is Daniel Wilcox. Daniel, welcome in. It is good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you too, Mark, man. Thanks for having me on the show this week, man. Huge week right now in football. One of the most meanest matches, bloodiest matches you're going to ever see in football, even to date, when football is considered now flag football, right? But this is still one of the most physical flag football games you're going to ever see. Trust me.
Yeah, is it okay if Lamar Jackson drops out of the MVP race for a week because he had more touchdowns than incompletions this past week against the Giants?
No, it ain't okay. This is the week we need him to step up more than anything. I mean, we have absolutely crapped down our legs against the Steelers like the last 3, 4, 5, I feel like, viewings that we've had against you guys. So to me, it's important that Lamar Jackson really goes hard this week on the MVP ballots, and we need to get at least 5 or 6 touchdowns out of that guy, whether it's throwing or passing. I mean, throwing or running. And in the past, it's been weird. It's almost like it's some kind of weird aura or something against the Ravens every time we play the Steelers, like it's some kind of jinx or something on us. I mean, guys are dropping balls that never drop balls. Mr. Mark Andrews dropping passes, touchdown passes, Zay Flowers, everybody looking at their hands like, man, what the heck is going on? It's like it's this unraveling of confidence when we play you guys. I don't know what it is, man, but we got to fix it this week.
I'll use the word kryptonite. The Steelers have won 8 of 9 against the Ravens. Now, that comes with a few caveats of Lamar has rested in some of those games. He's been injured in some of those games. What stuck out to me a year ago, I was at the Steelers-Ravens game in Pittsburgh. There were 2 things. You mentioned the drops. First and foremost, I think there were 8 when that game was played in Pittsburgh a year ago. The second thing I really noticed from the defensive standpoint is the widened splits that the Steelers had up front, where they had TJ Watt playing in a 9 technique, where he's even outside of the tight end.
Right.
What have you seen the Steelers done from the player perspective of what they've done to be able to slow down Lamar Jackson?
The reason why they go in that wide front like that, they're trying to contain Lamar the best way they can. They feel like if they could collapse the pocket on him versus allowing him to get outside of the pocket, they could contain him and stop the action Jackson format of what he's doing to everybody in the entire league. So it's been very successful for the Steelers. I mean, that's how they've always kind of played when they had a running quarterback like a Michael Vick or whatever. And it helps, man. It really does. It gives your outside guys the upfield advantage so they can get upfield quicker on your tackles or your tight ends. And when you got a guy like TJ Watt, it's kind of hard to stop him from getting around the edge on anybody, especially a tight end trying to block him. That's just a ridiculous thing to do. And when I can look back at when I played, I had to go against James Harrison, right? Mm-hmm. And it was no way I was going to block James Harrison one-on-one, And I knew that, and it was like, hey, how can I slow him down? I'm about to cut his ass the first time to try to slow him down to do something. But that's what they're doing. When they get those wide 9s, they're trying to come in, they're trying to pinch Lamar and bracket him to keep him from getting outside the pocket, because that's when he's his most dangerous. If you could push him up the middle with a spy, you could have a pretty fast safety or a linebacker that could come downhill and trip him up or slow him down, to get him from making some damage, doing some real damage to your defense. And it's a smart technique by Pittsburgh. I mean, I feel like Mike Tomlin was my linebacker coach when I was in Tampa Bay. So I vouch for this. I feel like I'm verified to say how phenomenal of a coach he is and a great mind that he is. We got a chance to win the Super Bowl together in Tampa, and he's been nothing short than spectacular in Pittsburgh. Even with the rosters he's had over the years, he still found a way to be over 500. But I think the Steelers defense is always going to be one of the top defenses in the nation. That every single year they're going to be up front in the top 5 no matter what, and they're going to find a way to wreak havoc and cause problems for any offense that step foot on that field.
Yeah, and hopefully Watt can play. We'll see what his availability is. You were talking
hopefully
about Mike Tomlin as well.
Hopefully not. He's a game wrecker.
The Steelers have some depth at the rushing position. Alex Highsmith is back. Nick Herbig, if Watt is unable to go. But
I'll take them all day over Watt.
See, from the offensive standpoint, you're laughing at it. It's like, what are you doing out here? Where's TJ?
No. Yeah, get out. Yeah, y'all come on out. Everybody that's behind Watt, come out. TJ, stay home, watch it on TV if you want, my brother. Stay warm, TJ.
Yeah, and there's a reason he's the favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year right now. Correct. As it stands, BetOnline has that there. And man, he's just been every opportunity he's had. He had coming off a week, he had 2 sacks, the forced fumble against Philly. And
game wrecker.
And it's like, even if off the double and triple teams, man, it's like, even when you know where 90 is, you know he's going to be over your opposing right tackle.
Yeah.
I've never really understood why more teams don't put their best edge rusher on the right tackle, because most quarterbacks are right-handed. I've never really understood this.
Well, they figured the quarterback could see him coming, from that side easier. So they put him on the backside of him because most quarterbacks are right-handed, and he never sees him come from the backside. So it's a quicker sack. If he never see you coming, he can't avoid you. But if he sees you coming because he's facing you and you're on the right side, now he actually could step up in the pocket, or he could help the tackle kind of push you around the pile or whatever, So that's why they put him on the backside. They try to take full advantage of the quarterback's blind side and take him out as fast as possible.
Is there any player that you played against that he reminds you of, TJ Watt?
Yeah, Terrell Suggs. Absolutely game wrecker. Like, when I say nothing you could do, James Harrison kind of puts me in that same mind frame. Like, when you look at James, he's a short, stocky, wide body. He looked like a freaking old Ford truck. You don't think that he's as quick as he is or as shifty as he is, but he's super, super patient with his hands. He's so low to the freaking ground. He has that automatic leverage on you, and this game is all about leverage. And TJ Watt kind of has that same shiftiness and that same quickness and that same up and under move that Suggs had, and kind of cat-like movement, man. But then they're freakishly strong. They're like one of the strongest guys you probably ever went against. And what happens a lot of times is you're taught to shoot your hands with your thumbs up. And these guys are so crafty with their hand, they'll let you shoot your hands. And right when you get ready to get to them, they'll take their hand underneath yours and push your hand up. And when they push your hand up, you go right over their shoulder pads. And now they're underneath you. And now they can, turn sideways, get right behind you. They'll take the elbow, shoot it to your back, and use your body as momentum to get to the quarterback even quicker. It's so crazy, like how technique and skill set works. And what a lot of these guys are doing in the offseason now are jiu-jitsu and karate moves and stuff like that. So they learn how to do the wax on, the wax off, the Mr. Miyagi that you saw with Danielson back in the day, right? So now they knocking both hands off with the windmill technique, or they're slapping one and then they're ripping over and chopping and all this type of stuff. And it's all Brazilian jiu-jitsu moves and karate moves that they're using, but they're actually practicing with senseis in the offseason just so they could be that quick with their hands. And TJ Watt, JJ Watt, all those guys have mastered it. I used to box in the offseason just to try to make sure I had my punches right, because it's the same thing as throwing a jab when I'm trying to punch you and set back and protect. I used to box in the offseason just to try to get my hands quicker to be able to get those guys, because I was so small and undersized. I had to do what I needed to do in order to be able to get the advantage on my opponent.
Tremendous insight there with the cross training. I mean, that's excellent stuff there, Daniel. Yeah. What I want to ask too, you mentioned Terrell Suggs. When you think of AFC North football, you think of Steelers and Ravens. I remember when Big Ben was retiring, ESPN put together a story online interviewing all of the former Ravens players. And I can't remember if it was Terrell Suggs, it might have been Bart Scott, that hit Ben Roethlisberger, where it was like the most devastating hit you've ever seen in your life. And Ben just strolls off as if nothing happened. And it was just like, if you go back and look at that replay, man, like, whoa.
No, the hit that Bart put on Ben, Suggs hit him a couple of times too, but the hit that Bart put on him was the one that come to mind instantly. And Bart hit Ben so freaking hard that I don't think Ben knew where he was, by the time he woke up. For a split second, I think he was unconscious when he hit the ground. Knocked the wind out of him. He says, if you talk to Ben right now, he says the hardest he's ever been hit. And the crazy thing is about it, Mark, the hardest I've ever been hit is by Bart Scott. He's my teammate, right? He hit me in practice one time. We just in shoulder pads and helmets. Yeah. And I'm at the fullback. I shift from tight end back to the backfield, and I come up the lead block for Jamal Lewis. And Bart comes down and hits me like we're in full pads. I'm like, bro, what you doing? Like, what are you on? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm mad, I'm pissed off, I'm disoriented. I'm like, which one of you guys hit me? You know, that type of thing, right? And it was crazy. You know, the dude is so physical. He hit Ben so freaking hard. I can't remember if he finished that game, to be honest with you. I remember him laying down there for a while, and he was kind of rolling back and forth, and all the, you know, the medics and stuff came out to the field with him. I can't remember if he actually finished the game that game. He probably did, because Ben was so freaking tough, you know, but I remember that hit. Yeah, I remember that hit like yesterday, man. And from that point on, he had his head on the swivel. He was looking for 57 every single time, but Bart hit him so hard that it was crazy. And there's a clip, like an NFL clip or a Ravens clip, where Bart actually talking about that hit. And Bart said he let up off of him because he had respect for Ben. You know, he kind of slid his head to the side a little bit. He didn't put his head right in his sternum. Back then, this was legal to put your helmet right in his chest, but he kind of slid his head to the side and kind of threw his shoulder right underneath Ben's chest, and then drove him into the ground, which is now illegal now too. Mm-hmm. You can't do that right now, you know. So, and fell on him with his body weight. So, but Ben, he'll tell you right now, that's the hardest he's ever been hit.
So when you got hit, when you were in practice, was this A gap, mm-hmm. B gap? Like, what do you remember about the aftermath of that for you?
I don't remember what gap it was. The hit was too hard. It was either A or
B. You don't even remember.
But I know it was right up the middle, boy. I'm telling you right now, I can't remember the play or anything. I just know I shifted to the backfield and I lined up at the fullback spot, and I kind of went in there, and I was going in there just to kind of thud up a little bit. You know, we try to simulate game-like experiences no matter what. And I tell my sons the same thing all the time, Mark. Every rep is a game rep. Treat practice like a game, so a game feel like practice, right? Those are the two quotes I always push to my boys. I don't care what they're doing in life. This shit actually matters. It makes sense. You know, every rep is a game rep. Treat practice like a game, so a game feels like practice. You know, so I ran in there, you know, had all my steps right. My pads was low. I'm ready. You know, I'm trying to figure if I can put my helmet on this side of him so I can make sure Jamal could cut right off my ass the other way that he needs to go and to stop this thing. So I'm kind of lunging into him. And Bart came and hit me so freaking hard. I said, man, don't you ever do that shit again. I don't care who you are, what you think. Don't you ever hit me like that again, bro. Like, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, I talked to him after practice in the locker room, like, bro, what was you thinking? You know what I'm saying? He was like, Willie, I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry, man. You know, I had a little flash. You know, that's the Detroit in him. That Detroit grittiness in Bart just makes him do crazy stuff like that. But that's the type of stuff I experienced every single day at practice, whether it was Terrell Suggs, Bart Scott, you know, Ray Lewis. There's a picture of me floating around the league right now in practice, and Ray has his hand all on my face, and he got me all balled up like this, and Bart's underneath me on the ground trying to grab my ankle. And it's, you know, it's like every day in practice, that's what I had to deal with. And James was no different. James Harrison was no different. I played with James in NFL Europe in Germany. We was on the same team with Ryan Fire. I had to see him every day in practice. And he was the same exact way he was in practice as he was when I had to play against him in games. But I felt like he always took it to another level when he played against us when I was in Baltimore.
All right, we got to stay on this because I have several follow-up questions. Well, let me start here.
Okay.
I hope Jamal Lewis at least thanked you after the fact.
No. Jamal never thanked me at all. I just saw Jamal the other day. He still didn't say thank you.
Well, there's still time.
That could have been him. That could have been him getting hit.
There's still time, number one.
Right.
Playing with James Harrison in Europe. I did not know this, Daniel. Did you know right away where it's like, this is an NFL player? What are we doing here?
Hands down, James was the best defensive guy on the team. We had him, and we had a defensive end that was really, really good too. James ended up getting hurt, so he didn't finish the season with us, but he ended up coming back to the Ravens, and then he got released and ended up going to Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. But James was hands down one of the most unicorn type players I had ever seen. And he wasn't James Harrison then. He was just James, and we had already gave him the nickname Debo. We gave him the nickname Debo in Germany. That's when I think he started to get that nickname, because you come down there and act like he was Debo, and he did it so well, you know. And but he was a phenomenal player. I knew he was going to be good. We would have been much better with him on the team and on the squad, and he just kept getting better every freaking year. He got stronger and stronger and stronger every year to the point where nobody could touch him. He was so strong that a 300-pound guy, he treated him like he was 150 pounds. Like, James was just a freak of nature as far as strength. And a lot of times you see guys that bench press 400, 500, 600 pounds, and it doesn't translate or correlate to the field at all. They're soft as pudding on the field. But James had an innate ability to use his leverage and to be explosive in a very short space to allow himself to become the person that he is, the Pro Bowler who hopefully one day, I hope he's a Hall of Famer, but I hope he gets, and I hope it's a first ballot type thing for him because he deserves it, man. He was one of the hardest guys that I honestly had to face my entire career. And I came in at the end of Michael Strahan's career, and then I played all the way, through the James Harrison era and a bunch of, I seen a bunch of guys, man. I played with Derek Brooks and Simeon Rice and Warren Sapp down in Tampa. And in New York, I had the Mo Lewis area, Sam Cowards, the Marvin Jones era, all that stuff up there. And the John Abraham, Sean Big Cat Ellis, Jason Ferguson Ellis in New York. And then go down to Baltimore and come in with the Kelly Greggs and end out with the Haloti Ngata's, So, it was crazy.
You mentioned James Harrison too. Even in retirement, some of the workout videos he posts on his Instagram, it's just like I talk to Ike about this sometimes, and every single time he just goes, "Yeah, he different." Every time.
I'm telling you right now, he's different. Not only is he different, but the fact that he still trains the way that he trains lets you know that it was a way of life for him. It wasn't just about football, and I love that, man, because I remember I was so beat up when I retired. I was like, bro, I don't want to see another weight. I feel like I've been lifting weights for 30 years. And I was like, and I retired at 32, but I was like, bro, if I see another weight, I might throw up. I was so tired. My body was so beat up. My foot was jacked up, my shoulder, my neck, my arm, my wrist, my finger, it was just so many things about me that was just banged up. And I was like, bro, I don't want to see another weight. So I literally took a hiatus from lifting a weight for almost 3-4 years. And it killed my body and made my body even worse because of the fact that, your muscles start to relax and everything that you had built up tight that kept you safe, it now starts to relax. And now all those joints start to really bother you more. So he's doing it the right way. I love the way that James is doing it. I wish I had a chance to go back myself and do it. I would continue to lift and continue to train the way that he's training right now. It's hard to get it back once you stop, boy. I'm telling you, every time I get started, Mark, I'd be like, my body be like, no. My mind be like, yeah, man, come on, you got this. My body be like, boy, stop.
Got to find the fountain of youth. It's the compounding everything where it's not doing it for a week or a month or even 6 months. It's how that adds up over time, over long periods of time.
Yeah.
It means a lot to me, though, when I hear this from a former player, when you talk about the Hall of Fame candidacy with James Harrison.
Yeah.
And this is always the knock on the Steelers players. And I think the Ravens are the very close parallel. I think it's like 1A, 1B of
I agree.
Who's dominated the AFC North. But with the Steelers, with the tradition, it's like, well, there are already plenty of Steelers in. We don't need to put more in. But I hear people that played with and against, whether it's James Harrison, Hines Ward. You go back to the 70s, L.C. Greenwood was a guy who's a 5-time Pro Bowler. He had 4 sacks in a Super Bowl, and he's not in the Hall of Fame. It's like, if he's not in, who are you putting in?
Yeah, I don't know why he's not in the Hall of Fame right now. That's crazy. But there are a lot of Steelers in the Hall of Fame. So you 100% correct. A lot of times it's weird how they do the ballots for the Hall of Fame and who they select and when they select them. And like even Haloti Ngata, I think, is the first ballot Hall of Famer. Terrell Suggs should be, Marshall Yonder should be. So when you start talking about the Ravens, the Ravens have done a phenomenal job. I think we got some players that's playing on the team right now that could probably be first ballot Hall of Famers when they're done. And it's going to be interesting to kind of see. How this thing unveils. And James, has he already been inducted to the Ring of Honor in Pittsburgh?
I need to check that. I believe he has. I will double check that.
Hope so.
Yeah, he will be if he's not. Off the top of my head, I believe he is.
Yeah, James Farrior was another one of my teammates that played in Pittsburgh. I played with James my first 2 years in New York with the Jets. And Potsy, James Farrior, a.k.a. Potsy, was, he was one of the most phenomenal linebackers I played against too as well. He played at a high level for a long time for you guys.
Yeah, Harrison went into the Ring of Honor last season. So they always have –
that's great.
Kind of like how they do the Pro Football Hall of Fame where they usually it's usually 5
years later.
And it's usually several different players. But
I love that. I love that for James. He earned it. He deserved it. Absolutely.
Let's bring this back to the here and now. We mentioned TJ Watt might miss the game. George Pickens has been out for the Steelers the last 2 games, and this offense has looked way different. Daniel, I'll go here because there's times he'll make a head-scratching play where it's like, what is he doing? This isn't helping the team. But I'm looking at this from the standpoint from a bigger picture.
Yeah.
You go into this offseason, if you want to mess around to say, oh, well, he's in the final year of his rookie deal, let's let him play it out. If I'm Pittsburgh, I'm getting out ahead of when he could potentially hit the free agent market relative to what he's going to be able to make on an open market for the premium that you got to pay NFL receivers. What say you from the enemy, from the opposition perspective, just because these last 2 weeks, the Steelers offense has not been the same without George Pickens on the field?
I would sign him in a heartbeat. I wouldn't waste any time. He's a freak. The dude is absolutely a phenomenal player. When you say somebody's a freak, it's not a bad thing too. I want to make sure I say that out loud, because some people don't get that. They, you got everybody's getting canceled now for saying the wrong thing, right? In football, being a freak is like one of the most phenomenal players on the field. Like, he's so dynamic, he's different from everything else out there. And George Pickens is one of those. I watched him play at Georgia. I'm from Georgia. I'm an ATL guy, and I'm a Bulldogs fan. So I got a chance to see him play with the Bulldogs, and he was a phenomenal player there. And it transitioned very well to the NFL. And he's different. He separates himself week in and week out. And his attitude, his antics sometimes make him look like, man, what the hell is this guy doing? But at the same time, he's so Pittsburgh. It's like, it's like the crazy stuff that he does. It's like, bro, that's what Pittsburgh guys do. Like, what are you complaining about? It is what it is. Like, sometimes it does hurt the team, and he need to control the parts that hurt the team. But at the end of the day, his attitude, his grittiness, his griminess, his nastiness, that's all AFC North mentality, top of the North mentality. And that's why you guys are who you are right now. And to me, he wears the black and gold the way it's supposed to be worn. I would definitely get ahead of the curve and sign him ASAP before he hits the free agent market, and don't even give him a chance to sniff it and see what they look like. And he's supposed to be a Steeler. When he's supposed to retire as Steeler. He's that type of guy. Wow. He kind of reminds me of he kind of plays a little bit like Plexico Burress back in the days, like stuff like that. Just, he has a vibe to him. And the nastiness reminds me, of course, Hines Ward, right? Because Hines used to be like the most nastiest dude. And he was also a Georgia receiver from UGA, so it was like to kind of see them kind of following that same, mantra is kind of dope, and I think Pickens should be a Steelers forever. To me, he's the guy that you want to keep in that black and gold jersey until the day he retires. And you want him to retire his family in Pittsburgh, and he want him to stay in Pittsburgh. You want him to do one of these shows like we're doing right now in Pittsburgh, and just become a part of that community when he's done. So I would try to keep him as much as possible. I wouldn't let anybody else touch him. He's that good of a guy. And I think any quarterback that comes in there will be extremely excited to throw the ball to him.
The connection he's had with Russell Wilson this season is, in my opinion, which really unlocked this Steelers offense this year. And I've just seen his value tenfold higher when he's not been on the field versus when he is on the field, because it just hasn't been the same these last 2 weeks. It just hasn't been. At the same time, if his hamstring is bad enough to where he needs another week of rest, I mean, it's going to be tough to beat. Exactly.
Rest him. You've already beat us one time. You've already beat us 9 times. You could probably beat us without him. Like, why would you even risk him not playing this week just to lock up the AFC North when you could do it the following week or the following week? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's one of those things where I would a hamstring and a groin are two of the worst injuries you can get as a receiver, right? They're nagging injuries that will prolong you and have you sit out every single game. You can find a way to kind of work yourself in there to start every game, but you won't finish them. As soon as you have to do something sharp or hard or something that's not calculated, and when I say not calculated, not playing, like I'm gonna run 5 steps and put this foot in the ground, and then I'm gonna go left. As soon as somebody stab you and your body has to react to that stab, and now I'm off balance, now I try to plan and take off, that hamstring will blow all over again like a bad tire. So I would definitely hold him out as long as I need to make sure that he's healed, because he's that important to me. And I know I'm going to need this guy in the playoffs. I'm going to need him in the Super Bowl for us to be effective. I need the hamstring to be as close to 100% as possible. If it's anything less than 90%, I wouldn't risk bringing him out there to have him re-injure it, because I guarantee you the Ravens are going to push his ass to his limit, where he's going to have to run as fastest, and he's going to come out of the break as hard as he's ever came out of a break when he runs a route against Marlon Humphreys, Nate Wiggins, even 14, hell, 14 get over there. His longer ranges he is, one good shove from him may make him pull that hamstring again, So, and then a lot of times guys pull their hamstrings, Mark, just stopping. not even running.
Yep.
Like when they trying to stop and slow down, that's when they pull it the most. They'll overextend or hyperextend their leg just a little bit, and then that thing pops, so he could easily tear it off the bone and be out for the rest of the year. So I would be very cautious and very smart if I was the Steelers with that.
Did you ever deal with that injury in your career, Daniel?
Yeah. Usually the fast guys have to deal with hamstring injuries. So I was fast at a very small point in time in my career. So during that time, I tweaked the hamstring a couple of times. Where I opened my stride up and I was running downfield, or I tried to stop and it just kind of popped on me a little bit. But it wasn't to the point where where I tore it off the bone or had a really, really bad strain. It was enough to keep me out of maybe 2 weeks. And it's such a painful injury, man. You can't run with it because that muscle has to expand and contract for you to open your stride up and have your turnover. And for some reason, it's one of the most nagging, aggravating injuries that you could possibly have as a receiver.
Yeah, I had one in high school, and it was like I was losing races to people I shouldn't have been losing to. I'll just put it that way.
I got you.
It's like running on one leg. It's terrible.
It is.
And you're like, and as soon as you start to feel better, it's like, oh, this is good again. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
And keep in mind, the NFL has the best treatment that you could possibly get, for a hamstring injury. They're going to wrap it up. They know exactly how to wrap those things up. They're going to wrap that thigh up real good all the way up to his groin, and then they're going to go around his waist with it, tape him up real good to try to keep that muscle as tight as they can so that it doesn't expand too much and he re-injure it or pull it again. But it's nothing's going to stop it in a game of this magnitude. This game would push him to his limit. But before halftime, he'll get pushed to the limit, and if he's not 100% healthy, he's going to pull it again.
Yeah. All right. This is the portion of the program where I'm a little bit petty. Diontate Johnson, former Steelers receiver, excused from team activities this week.
Yeah.
He only has 4 catches with the Ravens. Like what? Or excuse me, 1 catch with the Ravens.
Right.
Just what has gone on? I'm very confused by this. Like my thought process is like he could help Baltimore with what Pittsburgh likes to do and the personnel, and hey, this guy likes to do this and this guy doesn't. What say you, Daniel?
Well, I've watched them play, the first 4 or 5 games. I think he came in and they tried to give him the ball. Every time they tried to give him the ball, something would happen. It was like we was talking about the kryptonite thing earlier, right? So it was like every time we tried to give him the ball, he would trip up and fall, or he would get tripped from behind and he would fall down, or Lamar would scramble and he would go the wrong direction and Lamar would throw it over his head. They just wasn't on the same. It wasn't in sync. It wasn't on the same page, and it just didn't happen. He should have way more catches than that for sure. But they haven't tried to just target him to just get him the ball any kind of way they can. They didn't make him the premier receiver, if that makes sense. But the way things have shapen out, man, it's like he's still a Steeler. He came over to Baltimore. He's disrupting the entire team, the offense, everything. He's disrupting the locker room. Like, we got to get this guy out of here, man. What the hell were we thinking bringing him in? It's been so crazy just to kind of watch that thing. The only time I've ever seen a player get dismissed from the team is when I was playing with Tampa and they told Keyshawn not to come back. They after the Super Bowl the next year, they kicked Keyshawn off the team and told him he's no longer allowed to come into the facilities for the rest of the season. So they had to still pay him, which is crazy. They paid him all year long, but he didn't have to come to practice. He couldn't come in the facilities, period. So this is the only time I've seen anything close to what's happening to him right now. And I think what's happening is he came over to help in his mind, and he was coming over here, to be a premier receiver. And we already got premier everything. We really don't need another premier guy. And I think the Ravens was trying to make sure they had enough depth going into this playoff run in the Super Bowl, so they don't falter, because they knew if one guy went down, then they would be in trouble. But I really don't think they would have been in trouble. I like Tyler and Wallace. I like the guys that's on the back end, the Nelson Aguilars. I like those back end guys for us. And they brought him in, and I think now you have to figure out a way to get him the ball. And when you have so much talent on offense like we do, how do you decipher it? You're going to average about 60 reps per game on offense. If you're going to give Derrick Henry 20 reps, at least 20, right? Now you only got 40 reps.
If you're smart, if you're smart, Daniel, let's be honest here. You got to get King Henry the rock. Yeah.
Yeah. Try to give him the ball at least 20 times. And most people, if they had him, they would probably try to give it to him 30. If you give King Henry the ball 30 times, that's only 30 reps left for the rest of your stars. Your Mark Andrews, your Isaiah Likely's, your Zay Flowers, your Rashard Bateman's, your Lamar Jackson, who's the MVP runner-up. Let's not mention Justice Hill, right? You still got another running back that's pretty dope. Now you got Keaton Mitchell back, who's a 4-2 guy who actually won the starting job last year before he got hurt and blew his knee out. Now he's back. So now you got all this talent. Now you're gonna bring in another guy that requires a lot of touches. And how do you decipher who you're gonna give those touches to? Because Zay Flowers should get the ball at least 5 to 10 times a game, if you ask me. Mark Andrews at least 5 to 10 times a game, if you ask me. Isaiah Likely another 5 at least. And then you got Justice Hill, who's probably gonna get another 10 to 15 touches himself because he's that dynamic and explosive as a secondary back. So you got to put the ball in Lamar Jackson's hands at least 10 times too. So how do you decipher that? And then when you're playing against teams like a Pittsburgh, right? You're gonna have balls batted down at the line of scrimmage. You're gonna have incompletions when you try to throw the ball. So there's gonna be all these misplays. You're gonna have offsides, penalties. You're gonna have Steelers jump off. You're gonna have all these reps that are blown throughout the period of the game. So even with those 64 reps you get, there's going to be penalties and holding and illegal hands to the face and all that type of stuff. So these guys won't get the reps that they really want because there's so many things that has to go perfect on offense for you to get the ball in one of your star guys' hands. And I think he got frustrated. He couldn't take it. He might have said some things he probably shouldn't have said because he wanted the damn ball. But this is one of those offenses, man, and one of those teams that the Ravens did such a phenomenal job of stacking talent that how do you figure out how to get this guy the ball as dynamic as he is with all the rest of the dynamic players that you already have? It's almost impossible.
I think it speaks volumes that the Steelers traded him to Carolina. Now they got back Diontae Johnson, who's got 5 interceptions, a career high.
Okay,
but the Steelers need another receiver right now because it's George Pickens and there's everybody else. And it's like, I think it speaks volumes because Diontae, at least in terms of the statistical production, he's a solid player. He's a good route runner.
Yeah.
But it's at this point, it's like, we'll see what happens this offseason. I mean, a team will be able to get him on the cheap, but
he wouldn't be on my damn team.
Well, and
anytime you try to put a player,
he doesn't really block either. So it's like,
and you can't. Anytime you try to put a player in the game and he won't go in the game because he feel like he's too good to go in the game at this point in time on the NFL level,
that's crazy to me, man.
You got to go. You got to get off this team ASAP. Yeah, it's one bad apple will rotten the entire team, man. If he's the bad apple, his ass got to go right now. Why would you even risk bringing somebody on your organization into your locker room that could disrupt every single thing you worked your ass off for? He got to go right now.
And I think about the opportunity that he had going into this week to go up against his former team.
Yeah.
That's an incredible opportunity. But 4 games, 1 catch, only 5 targets. And we'll see if this is the end of Diontae in Baltimore. But like going into this game, it was like, oh man, like Diontae might light us up this week. And now we don't even have to worry about it. Baltimore still has a ton of other weapons, like you said, though. Right. I mean, for me, it starts with the running game with Lamar and King Henry, and then, Mark Andrews. Zay Flowers is a really good player, too. He's a really, really good player. Those are the 3 running back, tight end, receiver that you got to stop if you're Pittsburgh. I got a few other things I want to get to that I want to make sure that we do before we wrap up here. Okay. Justin Tucker is a future Hall of Famer. Speaking of Hall of Famers earlier, what's going on this year?
I had Matt Stover on the podcast, on the Bleav in the Ravens podcast a couple of weeks back, and just kind of want to talk to Matt about it. He was just talking about mainly that, Justin Tucker is getting up in age. His age is a little bit different, so his body's starting to change a little bit, and he has to kind of adjust how he kicks due to how his body has matured over the years. He's not as twitchy as he normally would be, or that, he might have lost a little bit of a step or whatever. So he has to do some things to adjust. And he just feels like he honestly just haven't taken that next leap to adjust to what he needs to adjust to right now to get back on track. And, of course, once you start missing them, you kind of get in your own head a little bit, and I think really, honestly, Tuck just need to be Tuck. Just, man, go out there, F it. Whatever you used to do before you used to go kick a field goal, just go do the same thing, bro. Like, who cares? Bro, I love him to death. I think he's a phenomenal player. He's great for the locker room, great energy, fun to be around. It makes me feel like mentally, he's dealing with some other stuff outside of football that's kind of causing it for me personally. But I love him. I think he'll be fine. And I think Harbaugh knows that if you're going to go into the playoff or a Super Bowl run, you need a prolific type kicker. He's a old special teams coordinator himself, so he understands how important special teams is. And to me, you got to talk to Justin Tucker and figure out exactly what he feels comfortable doing right now, and don't let him do anything more than that. Get him into a rhythm. And Brian Billick is a prime example of this. I had Billick on the show a while back too, and he used to go to Matt Stover and ask Matt, before every kick, hey, Matt, where I need to get the ball to? Like, when we on offense, where I need to get the ball to? And Matt would say, anything inside the 30, I'm good. I'm money, and then he would literally get the ball inside the 30 before he kicked the field goal. If he didn't, we pinning their ass down in the goal line. I don't care if we got the ball on the 35 or the 40-yard line. He's not going to risk Matt going there to miss a field goal. He'll take the field position chance of pinning them down by the red zone and then having them have to go 95 against our defense. And most of the time that was not good for anybody, So And I think that's what we got to do for Tucker. We got to respect his craft and respect his knowledge of the game at this point, and go to him and ask him where does he feel comfortable? Does he need the ball on the left hash to hit them all? Does he need it in the middle to hit them all? Does he need it in the right? And then try to get it right where he needs it at 100% of the time. If you just take a rep just to move the ball over for him sometimes so he can hit the field goal, that's what you got to do. And I think that would get him back on track to the point where he get his confidence back. Because right now it's a little bit lack of confidence, I think, more than anything. And in preparation, I think he prepares week in and week out, and he feels confident going into the game. And then he gets to the game and something just kind of unravels a little bit. And Matt Stover was very adamant that it's not the snapper, it's not the holder. Right now it's just Tucker just adjusting his body just a little bit to make sure that he doesn't hook the ball a little bit to the left. And once he adjusts his body and get his timing back, he'll be perfectly fine.
Justin Tucker is 35 years old. And in the first matchup between the Steelers and Ravens earlier this year, I still can't believe it, where it's like Justin Tucker missed 7 points
and an extra point. 7 points.
So it's like, I'm like, let's go play the lottery, Daniel. This is never going to happen again. I still can't believe it.
Yeah. I can't believe this shit either. Every time I think about it, we've lost 5 games this year in a total of 22 points, and Justin Tucker has missed 22 points this year. So it's just, when you think about that, you don't realize how much you really depend on your kicker. But 2 field goals and an extra point against Pittsburgh, and then you turn the ball over the way we did last time against you guys. I mean, you guys played your ass off on defense. I think you stripped the ball like 2 or 3 times. We had 3 fumbles, and then we had 2 kicks and an extra point miss. That's 7 points we gave you guys, plus 3 opportunities for you to score 21. So it's just like, what do you do? Like, how do you win that game?
Yeah. The one thing too with Baltimore this year is the pass defense too. It's like, I get that teams trail. So I think these numbers are a little bit inflated, but it's like the second worst pass defense. I'm like, the chunk plays, I'm like, I've never seen. It's like, I don't think people fully understand how well Lamar's playing.
Yeah, right. Lamar's playing out of sight right now. I mean, he's every MVP year, he's already trumped it already. And he's still not even done, with the season, but he's already trumped every MVP season as far as stats already. And our defense is, anything that you've seen against them was warranted. It hasn't been inflated at all. We've given up play after play after play, week after week after week. Every time we start to take 2 steps forward, we go 3 steps back. And, the last 5 weeks, they're starting to kind of put game after game after game together. So if you check the stats the last 5 weeks, I think we're in the top 5, so we still have to do something to show the world that we're for real. And this week will be the first real test if we're actually for real. We haven't beat you guys. We haven't played well against you guys offensively, defensively, special teams wise. And last week against the team we just played this past week, we actually put together our first full game, coming out the bye, so putting together a full game, meaning we played well on offense, defense, and special teams. So we need to do this against a really good team with really good coaching staff and really good players. And this week against the Steelers will be our first true test of whether or not we're for real or not. Everything else, we've given up 5 losses this year that we shouldn't have given up. We could easily be undefeated right now if we just played better and coached better. So our coaches don't seem to coach their best game against great coaching. So I think this is a great coaching staff that you have with Mike Tomlin. I love the way Mike kind of carries his team. And Harbaugh does a phenomenal job as well. But it just seems like when we get to these tough games, we struggle a little bit. So now we got to figure this part of ourselves out, because if we want to make a Super Bowl run, hell, it goes through the North. This is it don't get no greater than Pittsburgh. So we got to show up and show out this week.
Have you seen any of the Hard Knocks in season at all?
I have. I started watching it a couple of weeks ago. I need to get back on it, Mark, because it's very interesting. I never seen them do it the way that they're doing it right now. where they kind of doing the whole division. It's the
Yeah,
first time I think
and
I've
I'll
seen
say
them do
this too. I didn't know this about Baltimore's facility. It looks like Hogwarts over there. The practice facilities
that.
look
It's
unbelievable, man.
beautiful, man. When I tell you it's so
It's
beautiful.
going to be the only nice thing I say about the Ravens. But
Yeah, I'm telling you, like I came in with the old facilities, so they still had the old one down on Owings Mills Boulevard, and we moved into the castle. We call it the castle, the Hogwarts that you were talking about. Yeah, we call it the castle. So we moved into the castle literally that first year I was there. So I lived there my entire career as a Baltimore Raven, and I made the transition from the old facilities, which was like an old office building with a bubble dome out back for an indoor facility that was like a blow up. It had like the air things that blew it up and all that type of stuff. And that's why our weight room was inside the bubble dome. It was weird. It was like a really weird space to kind of play football. And it was like right next to a plaza. People could look down from the plaza down into the field while we was practicing. And this place, they bought this beautiful land out there in kind of like in the woods where it was just nothing but deer. Knocked down a bunch of trees for an entryway, and it opened up to this huge area with a little lake in the back. And then it's gorgeous, man. Like 4 practice fields, a beautiful indoor facility that was sponsored by Under Armour. And then every year it seemed like Steve Bisciotti just does something to improve it. They made the locker room bigger. They made they moved the meeting room. They made the meeting room bigger. It's just everything he's done to the facility is extremely, first class. Like he spares no expense when it comes to this team.
Getting to see all 4 teams in the division has just been it's been a treat. Like just a behind the scenes access that I don't know we've ever seen before. And like, look, Ravens haven't been on Hard Knocks since way back in the day. The Steelers have never been on the show. And it's because part of the criteria of when you're on in training camp in the preseason, you have to have a losing record the year before. That hasn't happened in several years. It's been 21 consecutive non-losing seasons for the Steelers, 18 under Mike Tomlin. So it's like, when else would they have been on the show? Because they've never fulfilled the criteria to be on the show.
Right. He's been over 500 every year, so you got to give props to that, to the Pittsburgh organization. And even Bisciotti, like I talked to Bisciotti, he was like, one of the things he wanted to do when he got the Ravens was to kind of model that the franchise out off of the Steelers franchise, so the way that they run things and how they've maneuvered and stuff like that, the Ravens have copied a lot of that stuff. And that's why we've been so successful for the years that we've been around. We opened up in 96 and here we are in 2024. And we're still kicking it, man. And people still afraid of us. And, we've set the tone, for how great programs are supposed to be ran and how they look. And a lot of that was modeled behind you guys.
Absolutely. NFL Week 16, the Steelers at Baltimore, taking on their bitter AFC North Division rival, the Baltimore Ravens. He is Daniel Wilcox. He's the host of Bleav in Ravens. Daniel, if there's anything else you need to plug, the floor is yours.
Nothing at all, Mark, man. Hey, this week at the bank, Pittsburgh coming into town. It's Steelers week. Leave your terrible towels at home, people. We don't need that stuff flying around in M&T Bank Stadium. Leave your terrible towels at home, please. But I'll be up for the game. Can't wait to see this week, man. It's going to be such an exciting week, and it's such an exciting game. The atmosphere in Baltimore, I guarantee you there's this cold chill that's kind of going through the entire city right now of Baltimore. The water outside of M&T Bank Stadium will have a slight frost over it because it's going to be one of the coldest games you've seen all year long. And when I say cold, I'm not talking about weather, just the way the game is going to be played. It's going to be cold, meaning badass. It's going to be a badass game. I can't wait to see it, Mark.
Cannot wait. Daniel, I appreciate your time and insight today. I want to thank today's presenting sponsor, BetOnline.ag. Go leave us 5-star reviews on Apple and Spotify. Bleav in Steelers, also Bleav in Ravens. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button on the YouTube pages. He's Daniel Wilcox. I'm Mark Bergin. I'll see you here on the Bleav in Steelers feed immediately after Steelers and Ravens on Saturday. Until then, take care and so long, everybody.
Great job, Mark. You killed